Hello and welcome to the Learn English Lab. I'm Mike, and travel's like my favorite thing ever. And today we're going to take a deep dive into how to use travel to improve your English skills with Sarah, our language learning expert.
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here.
So Sarah, we both know that traveling can be a little scary if you're not a native English speaker.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're turning that fear into excitement with a deep dive into your favorite holiday destination, a how-to guide for English learners. So get ready to boost your confidence so you can speak English on your dream trip.
Absolutely.
Think of this deep dive as like your personal English language toolkit.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, I want to go to Paris.
Yeah.
We're going to help you articulate WHYY. Paris is your dream destination, and you're going to be practicing your English the whole time.
Yes.
Don't worry, it'll be fun.
Definitely. We want you to learn, but also, feel confident using English in real situations, when you're traveling.
Okay, cool. So step one is choosing that perfect holiday destination, right?
Yeah.
Sarah, what should our listeners think about first?
Well, Mike, it might seem obvious, but you have to choose a destination that really excites you.
Yeah.
When you're passionate about a place, you're more motivated to learn the language, and immerse yourself in the culture.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. If you're not really interested in a place, why spend your precious vacation time there?
Exactly. And a great way to start brainstorming is to write down simple sentences about what you enjoy.
Okay.
For example, you could write something like, I love exploring historical sites and learning about different cultures.
Oh, yeah.
Or, I'm fascinated by modern architecture and cityscapes.
Oh, those examples make me think about when I went to Rome.
Ooh, nice.
Describing, the Colosseum, like how grand it was, or like the Trevi Fountain and all those little details.
Yeah.
Really maybe appreciate Roman history and art even more.
It's a perfect example of how descriptive language can make your travel experience better.
For sure.
But even if you just focus on simple sentences, that's a great place to start. Imagine yourself in your dream location. I will wander through bustling markets, or I will try all the new foods and learn their names in English.
Oh, that's good.
Saying these out loud helps build confidence and fluency.
Yes, and don't let those sentences just sit there on the page.
Exactly.
Record yourself reading them, or watch a video with subtitles about the place you want to go to.
Yeah.
Or find someone to practice with.
Yes. And Mike, that brings us to our next step.
Okay.
Why is this particular destination your favorite?
Great question. So Sarah, what's your favorite holiday destination?
Okay, so I'm drawn to places with a lot of history, and for me, London is just the best.
Oh, nice.
Beyond the famous landmarks like Buckingham Palace and the Tower of London, it's a city where you can practice English by describing the architecture.
Yeah.
From the Gothic cathedrals to the Victorian townhouses.
I see.
The city's history is literally built into the streets.
Yeah.
Plus, there's the chance to talk to locals in English, which is super valuable.
Totally. And London's free museums are amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that Roman exhibit we saw a couple years ago?
Oh, yeah.
The mosaics were so well preserved.
I know.
Talking about them in English really made us think about,
Yeah.
the history and how they made them.
Absolutely. And those kinds of museum visits can help you to make more complex sentences.
Yep.
So instead of just, I will eat local food, you could say, I'm excited to try the food and order in English, or I plan to ask the staff about the artifact's history.
Oh, those are good.
Yeah.
So for our listeners, try to make sentences like that about your destination and record yourself saying them to work on your pronunciation and fluency.
Right, and don't forget about other resources.
Yeah.
Listening to podcasts or watching documentaries can teach you new vocabulary, and you can get used to different accents.
Okay, so let's move from dreaming about our trip to actually planning it.
Yes.
Sarah, what are some logistical things our listeners need to think about?
Well, Mike, no matter where you go, you have to have your passport and visa ready to go. And of course, you need a plan for exchanging money and how much you can spend. But think beyond the basics.
Okay.
Do you know how to ask for directions in English?
Yeah.
Can you read a map? Those practical skills can make navigating a new city less stressful.
Oh, man. Speaking of maps, I once tried to take the subway in Tokyo during rush hour without knowing any Japanese.
Oh, wow.
It was an adventure. Luckily, a nice local helped me find my way.
Yeah.
But knowing some phrases like, excuse me, where is? Or can you point me towards would have made things much easier.
Yeah, that's exactly why it's so important to learn those phrases.
Right.
So don't just memorize where is the bus stop.
Okay.
Practice saying, excuse me, do you know which bus goes to?
Okay.
Adding those polite phrases can make a big difference in how people respond to you.
I totally agree. You know, I have a funny story about trying to order food in Spain.
Hold on, Mike, another travel story. You always have the best one.
Well, this one really shows how useful those simple phrases can be.
Okay.
I was at this really cool tapas bar, but I was struggling to describe what I wanted to order.
I see.
Finally, I just gave up and said, "Can you recommend something delicious?"
Yeah.
And pointed at some things on the menu.
Smart.
The waiter smiled, brought me the most amazing food, and even taught me how to say delicious in Spanish.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So that's a good example of how even basic English can lead to some awesome cultural moments.
Absolutely. Now let's move on to the exciting part.
Oh.
Actually exploring.
Yes.
What activities do you think our listeners would enjoy?
Well, that's the beauty of travel.
Yeah.
Everyone likes different things.
Exactly.
Some people might like historical landmarks and museums, while others might want to go hiking or try adventure sports.
Right.
But no matter what you like, think about how you can use English to make those experiences even better.
I love that.
You've just said something I love.
What's that?
One of my favorite travel memories is from when I visited a spice market in Morocco.
Oh.
The colors were so vibrant and the smells were amazing and the sounds of people bartering in all these different languages.
Yeah.
It was sensory overload.
I bet.
Describing those experiences later in English helped me appreciate them even more.
That's awesome. It's a great way to connect language with real life.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, I will visit a castle, you could practice using more descriptive language.
Oh,
Like imagine being there, I'm going to walk through the castle gardens and look at the roses and all the carvings in the stone.
oh wow.
Or I'm going to learn about the castle's history and maybe even try on some armor.
I love how you're making those sentences so vivid.
Thanks.
You know, I'm already planning my next adventure, and I can see myself hiking through the Scottish Highlands.
Oh, nice.
I'm going to climb to the top of Ben Nevis and look out over the scenery and practice my nature vocabulary.
That sounds amazing, Mike.
Yeah.
Remember, practicing with those descriptive sentences can make your trip even more special.
Yeah, definitely. It adds another layer to the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay, Sarah, let's talk about one of the best parts of travel. Meeting the locals.
Yeah.
What are some tips for our listeners on talking to people they meet?
Mike, those interactions are like the heart of any travel experience.
Yeah.
They can help us understand the place we're visiting in ways that no book ever could. Even if you're a beginner, don't be shy.
I couldn't agree more. I remember this one time.
Oh, are you about to tell another one of your travel stories, Mike?
You know me so well, but yeah, this story really shows how even a simple hello can lead to like a really amazing connection.
Oh, wow.
So I was in this tiny village in Tuscany,
Okay.
and I was totally lost trying to get back to my hotel.
Uh-oh.
And I saw this old woman taking care of her garden.
Yeah.
So I like worked up all my courage and just said, "Buongiorno." She didn't speak any English, but she like lit up and invited me in for some tea and biscotti.
Oh, that's so sweet.
We spent like an hour just talking with our hands and smiling.
I love that.
And she even drew me a map to get back to my hotel.
That's amazing. And it shows that even if you're not fluent, you know, just trying to connect with people can make a huge difference.
Yeah, for sure.
And for those of you listening who might be nervous about starting conversations,
Yeah.
practicing some basic phrases can really help.
Or like what kind of phrases?
Things like, excuse me, could you tell me where? Or do you know a good place to?
Yeah.
Can get the conversation going.
Yeah, and those conversations can turn into like mini language lessons, right?
Totally. I remember being in a cafe in Buenos Aires trying to order coffee in my really bad Spanish. And the barista was so patient, he corrected my pronunciation and even taught me some slang.
Oh, that's cool.
It was just a short interaction, but it made me feel so much more confident using Spanish in real life.
I love those little moments when you learn something new.
Me too.
It's like the whole world becomes your classroom.
Yeah.
Speaking of classrooms, let's give our listeners some exercises they can use to get ready for those real-life conversations.
Great idea. One thing they can do is role-play different situations with a friend or family member.
Oh, okay.
Like imagine checking into a hotel, ordering food at a restaurant, asking for directions.
Yeah.
The more you practice before your trip, the easier it will feel when you're actually there.
And don't forget about all the apps and websites that can help.
Oh, yeah.
There are so many that offer interactive language lessons and vocabulary practice.
Right.
You can even find apps just for travel phrases with audio recordings to help you get the pronunciation perfect.
Those are great resources. And Mike, another great way to practice is to just surround yourself with English as much as possible.
Immersion. It's like the magic trick for language learning.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be anything crazy.
Okay.
You could listen to English music while you're cooking dinner, watch a movie with subtitles, or even follow people on social media who speak English.
Yeah, the important thing is to be around the language as much as you can.
Right. And it's not just about listening and speaking.
What else?
Reading and writing are important too. We encourage our listeners to keep a travel journal, even if it's just a few sentences every day.
That's a good idea.
It can really help them remember what they're learning.
So it's like making your own textbook based on your own experiences.
Exactly. They can even use their journal to practice past tense verbs, descriptive adjectives, and new words they've learned.
I love that idea. And, you know, thinking back on those experiences is a really important part of the process.
Yeah.
It's not just about going to different places.
Right.
It's about what you learn and how you grow as a person.
I couldn't agree more. Every trip, whether it's a short one or a long one, can teach us so much about language and about ourselves.
So true. I remember this one time.
Yeah?
Okay, well, I won't tell another story right now, but I will say one of the biggest things I've learned from traveling is to be open to new things.
Yeah.
To be flexible and to go with the flow.
That's a great lesson, and it goes hand in hand with language learning.
How so?
Sometimes you have to be okay with trying new things, making mistakes, and stepping outside of your comfort zone.
Mistakes are our teachers. I've learned more from my language mess-ups than I have from any book.
Exactly. You know what I find really interesting about those conversations with locals?
What?
They can open up a whole new world of understanding.
Yeah.
It's not just about sharing information, it's about connecting with someone, laughing together, and maybe even learning a new word or phrase that you wouldn't find in a textbook.
Oh, yeah. Those little unexpected language moments are the best souvenirs.
They really are. Do you remember that time in Greece?
Well, let me guess another story about lost luggage. A crazy monkey and a wise old fisherman who only speaks in riddles.
Haha. Almost, but not quite this time.
Okay.
Although knowing you, a mischievous monkey encounter wouldn't be too surprising.
Probably not.
No. This story is about a simple word, Meraki.
Oh, I've heard of that.
I kept hearing it everywhere, in cafe shops, even on the beach.
Yeah.
Finally, I asked a local what it meant. They explained that Meraki is about putting your whole heart and soul into everything you do.
I see.
Doing your work with passion and creativity.
Oh, wow.
And it just hit me how perfectly that word captured the spirit of the Greek people I had met.
Yeah.
It was like a glimpse into their culture, their values, their way of life.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It really shows how language is more than just words. It's like a reflection of a culture's soul.
It really is. And those little aha moments are what make learning a language so rewarding.
For sure.
Mike, before we get too excited about all these trips, let's give our listeners some advice on how to actually use their English when they're traveling.
Oh, yeah. Good point. Practicing at home is one thing, but actually using it, out in the real world can feel totally different.
It definitely can. So let's focus on some ways to feel more confident using English when you're traveling.
All right, Sarah, lay it on us. What are your top tips?
Okay, first remember that communication goes both ways.
Yeah.
It's not just about speaking clearly. It's also about listening carefully and trying to understand what the other person is saying.
So active listening is important, even if there's a language barrier.
Absolutely. And one thing that a lot of travelers struggle with is understanding different accents.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
English is spoken all over the world, and those accents can sound really different.
I know I once asked a cab driver in Glasgow to take me to this famous museum, but my American accent confused him.
Oh.
We ended up at a football stadium, miles away.
That's a classic travel story. It shows how important it is to be aware of how pronunciation can change from place to place.
It definitely was a memorable experience. So how can our listeners get used to different accents before they travel?
Listening to different people speaking English is key.
Okay.
Movies, TV shows, podcasts, or even just conversations with people from different places can train your ear to hear those subtle differences.
So it's like a workout for your ears.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to ask people to repeat themselves or speak slower.
Yeah.
Most people are happy to help, especially if you're polite and you show them that you're really trying.
And a smile goes a long way, too.
Definitely a smile can help break down communication barriers.
So it's about being prepared, being flexible, and not being scared to ask for help if you need it.
Exactly. Now let's talk about what to do when things don't go as planned, because you know that happens a lot when you're traveling.
You mean those moments when you miss your train or your plans suddenly change?
Exactly. Travel rarely goes perfectly. That's why it's so important to be able to communicate your needs clearly, even if you're stressed.
Okay, so how can our listeners stay calm when those travel hiccups happen?
First, take a deep breath and figure out what's going on.
Okay.
Then decide what's the most important information you need to tell people, like your hotel reservation or if you have any food allergies.
Right.
This is where those essential English phrases we talked about earlier are really helpful.
Yeah, like, can you help me? Or I need.
Yes. Those phrases become your lifeline when things get tricky.
And it's a good idea to have a little notebook or a phrase book with you.
Right. It's like having a backup language guide in your pocket.
Exactly. And most importantly, remember that it's okay to make mistakes.
Yes, everyone makes mistakes. Don't let that fear stop you from talking.
I love that reminder mistakes are just part of the learning process.
Exactly. Every interaction, every conversation is a chance to learn and grow.
Sarah, you've given our listeners so many great tips for using English confidently while traveling. It's about being prepared, being flexible, and enjoying the process of communicating, even if it's not perfect.
That's a great way to put it, Mike. And remember, language is what connects us to different cultures and different ways of seeing the world.
So true. Go explore, connect, and let your English skills take you on an amazing journey.
That's a perfect way to end things.
We've talked about how to choose a destination, how to plan your trip, how to practice important phrases, how to have meaningful conversations, and what to do when things don't go as planned.
We covered a lot.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into using travel to improve your English.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
If you like this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to the Learn English Lab YouTube channel for more language learning tips and fun.
We'll see you next time.
Safe travels and happy learning. Hello and welcome to the Learn English Lab. I'm Mike, and I'm really excited for today's deep dive.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about festivals.
That's awesome.
And joining us to really help us unpack this topic is Sarah. She is an expert in language learning and cultural communication. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mike. I'm super stoked to be here.
You know, I was thinking before we hit record, I was like, talking about festivals is such a good way to practice your English.
Absolutely.
You get to share your culture. You get to connect with people from all over the world. It's
like a universal language, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So, Sarah, let's dive right into it. I mean, we all know that festivals are about celebrating, but what makes them so important? Like, what's the deeper meaning?
Well, I think you really hit the nail on the head there. Mike, festivals are more than just like parties or celebrations. They're like deeply rooted in history and values and beliefs of a community, and they kind of offer this window into a culture's identity.
Yeah, it's like each festival is like a story that's been passed down for generations. So, Sarah, for our listeners out there who are like eager to learn how to share those stories in English, any tips for them?
Yeah, definitely. So, like, to make your descriptions really clear and captivating, I always recommend thinking of it as a step-by-step process.
Ooh, I love a good step-by-step process.
Yeah, right.
So what's the first step?
So the first step is just introducing the festival. Just tell your listener the name of it, explain what it's about, and then mention when and where it's celebrated. So for example, you could say, my favorite festival is Diwali, the Festival of Lights. It is celebrated in India and by Indians all over the world, usually in October or November.
Okay, cool. So we've set the stage, we've introduced the star, the festival.
Exactly.
What's next?
Okay, so next you're going to dive into the festival's significance. Explain the meaning, the story behind it. So sticking with Diwali, you could say Diwali symbolizes the triumph of light over darkness and good over evil. It's based on this ancient story about Lord Rama's return to his kingdom after defeating a demon king.
Okay, so we're adding a layer of depth. We're adding the why behind this celebration. This helps the listener understand, what makes it so special.
Right. Now we're going to move on to the preparations.
Okay.
How do people get ready for this festival? What do they do to prepare? Do they clean their homes, decorate shop for new clothes, cook special dishes? This is where you can really paint a picture with your words.
Yeah, it's like we're taking our listeners on a sensory journey.
Exactly.
We're letting them experience the sights, the sounds, even the smells of the preparation.
Right, so think about Diwali. You could describe the colorful rangoli designs, the bustling markets with people buying sweets and gifts, the aroma of delicious food filling the air.
Yeah, you're making me feel like I'm right there.
Right.
Okay, so we've introduced the festival, we've explained its meaning, we've described the preparations. What's next in our step-by-step guide?
Okay, so now comes the fun part, describing the actual celebrations.
Yeah.
What are the main activities? Bring the festival to life for your listener. Talk about the prayers, the lighting of lamps, the fireworks, the food, the family gatherings. Showcase the heart of the festival.
This is where the story really comes to life. It's like we're dropping our listeners right into the celebration.
Exactly. You want to make them feel like they're experiencing it with you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so we've covered introductions, meaning preparations and celebrations. What's our next step?
Okay, so this is where you get personal handwork. Share what you personally enjoy most about the festival. What makes it special for you? Maybe it's being with family, cooking special dishes, watching fireworks, or taking part in certain rituals. Adding those personal experiences makes your description unique and relatable.
Yeah, I love that. It's like adding your signature to the story.
Exactly. You could say something like, my favorite part of Diwali is being with my family. We decorate the house together, and I love helping my mother cook special dishes. In the evening, we watch the fireworks and exchange gifts. It's truly magical.
Oh, I can feel the warmth and joy in that description.
Yeah.
It's like you've invited us all to celebrate Diwali with you.
That's the power of storytelling.
It is. Okay, we've covered a lot. Introductions, meaning, preparations, celebrations, and personal touches. What's the final step in describing our favorite festival?
The last step is kind of wrapping up your description by explaining why this specific festival is your favorite. What makes it stand out to you?
So we're bringing it all home? Tying everything together and leaving our listeners with a lasting impression of why this festival matters to us.
Exactly. So for instance, you could end your Diwali description by saying, Diwali is my favorite festival because it brings people together and fills the air with happiness, the lights, the food, the unity. It's unforgettable.
Beautiful, Sarah. You've captured the essence of Diwali in just a few sentences. So we've covered the structure, but what about the language? Are there specific words or phrases that our listeners should use?
Absolutely. So using vibrant vocabulary really enhances your descriptions. Words like celebration, tradition, ritual decorations, feast, unity, and prosperity are great choices.
Those are some great suggestions. Now, I think it would be incredibly helpful if we gave our listeners a full example using all these tips and words. What do you say we describe another popular festival like Christmas?
That's a fantastic idea. Christmas is celebrated worldwide, so it'll make a really great example to show how to use these descriptive techniques. So let's start by introducing the festival.
Okay, imagine you're talking to someone who has never experienced Christmas. How would you describe it to them?
I would say something like, my favorite festival is Christmas. It's celebrated on December 25th each year, mainly in Christian countries, but actually people of all backgrounds enjoy it. It commemorates the birth of Jesus Christ, and it's a time for giving love and joy.
Perfect start. You've given them the basics about Christmas and when it's celebrated. How about the preparations?
Okay, so I would describe like the weeks before Christmas. For example, I'd say in the weeks leading up to Christmas, people decorate their homes with lights, Christmas trees, and ornaments. They buy gifts for their loved ones and prepare special meals. On Christmas Eve, many families attend church and sing carols.
You're making me feel warm and cozy just thinking about those Christmas preparations.
Right.
Now, how would you describe the main events of Christmas Day?
I'd talk about the excitement of Christmas morning, I'd say. On Christmas Day, families gather to exchange gifts and enjoy a feast. Traditional dishes include roast turkey, mashed potatoes, and Christmas pudding. Many children believe that Santa Claus brings them presents, which adds to the magic.
Oh, I love how you've captured the Christmas spirit. Now, what do you enjoy most about Christmas?
For me, it's the warmth and cozy atmosphere, I'd say. What I love most about Christmas is the warm and cozy atmosphere. The twinkling lights, the smell of freshly baked cookies, and the sound of Christmas music make it magical.
That's such a heartfelt description, Sarah. Lastly, how would you conclude and explain why Christmas is your favorite?
I would conclude by saying Christmas is a festival that brings people together and reminds us to be kind and generous.
The perfect way to summarize the spirit of Christmas. You've done a fantastic job of describing it using vivid language and personal touches. But we've only scratched the surface. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll dive deeper into the nuances of language and explore how to make those descriptions even more captivating. Stay with us.
And, kind of building on that idea, Mike, think about how we can weave in, these sensory details and this figurative language into like a complete description of a festival. It's like putting together a puzzle where each piece kind of contributes to the overall picture.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
So how do we assemble this language puzzle, Sarah?
Okay, well, let's take another popular festival as an example. How about Holi, the Festival of Colors? It's celebrated in India and Nepal, marking the arrival of spring and the victory of good over evil. Imagine you're describing this really vibrant celebration to someone who's never experienced it before.
Okay, I'm picturing my friend who lives in Iceland. They see snow most of the year.
Right.
I bet they'd be fascinated by Holi. So how would we start through it?
Okay, you could begin by setting the scene, right? Saying something like, imagine a world transformed into a living canvas, where like every street and corner just erupts in this riot of color.
Wow, that's a powerful opening line.
Right.
It immediately grabs the listener's attention and sets the stage for something extraordinary.
Exactly. And then you can dive into the specifics using that sensory language to really paint a picture. You could say, the air is thick with the scent of gulal, the fine-colored powder that paints the faces and clothes of everyone in sight. Laughter echoes through the streets as people chase each other their hands, leaving trails of vibrant hues on everything they touch.
I love how you've incorporated both smell and sound into that description.
Yeah.
It's I can already feel the energy and excitement of the festival building.
Right, and to emphasize that visual spectacle, you could add a simile saying something like, from above, the crowds resemble a swirling sea of color, as if a giant artist has splashed his palette across the landscape.
That's a brilliant simile, Sarah. It really captures the scale and the vibrancy of the holy celebrations.
Right. And don't forget to highlight those unique rituals and traditions that make Holi so special. You could say bonfires crackle and blaze on the eve of Holi, symbolizing the triumph of good over evil. And as the flames die down, people gather around sharing stories and laughter, their faces illuminated by the flickering embers.
You've woven such a captivating narrative, Sarah. It's I've been transported to India, and I'm experiencing Holi firsthand.
That's the beauty of language, Mike. When used effectively, it has the power to transcend borders and transport us to different worlds.
Oh, and don't forget, adding a personal touch makes your description even more compelling.
Yes, definitely.
Right.
We talked about that a little bit earlier.
Right.
How can we personalize those descriptions of Holi? Think about what resonates with you most about the festival. Is it that sense of unity and community, the joy of letting go of inhibitions, the spiritual significance of the celebration? Share your own insights and experiences to really connect with your listener on a deeper level.
For example, I could say, what fascinates me most about Holi's is the way it transcends social barriers. On this day, everyone is equally united by the shared experience of joy, laughter, and color.
That's beautiful, Mike. It really adds a layer of depth and meaning to your description. And by sharing your personal perspective, you invite your listener to connect with the festival on a more emotional level.
This has been an incredible journey through the world of festival descriptions, Sarah.
Oh.
You've given our listeners so many valuable tools and techniques to make their English more vivid and engaging.
It's been a pleasure sharing these insights with you, Mike. And remember, the key to mastering any language is practice.
Right.
So I encourage everyone listening to try out these tips and see how they can really elevate their own storytelling.
That's great advice, Sarah. Don't be afraid to experiment. Have fun with language and let your personality shine through.
Exactly. And if you're feeling adventurous, why not share your own festival descriptions with us?
Oh, yeah.
We'd love to hear about the celebrations that bring joy to your life.
That's a wonderful idea. We can all learn from each other and celebrate the incredible diversity of cultures around the world. But for now, it's time to wrap up this episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mike. It's always a pleasure talking about language and culture with you.
And to all our amazing listeners out there, we hope you enjoyed this deep dive into describing your favorite festival in English. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel for more engaging language learning content. Until next time, keep practicing and keep celebrating. And it's more than just mastering English. Like when you're describing your favorite festival, it's about sharing a piece of your heart.
Yeah.
A piece of your culture with the world.
It is. It's like building bridges, through these shared experiences.
It is, exactly. And who knows, maybe by sharing your favorite festival, you'll inspire someone to learn more about your language, your traditions.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
It really is. The ripple effect of that is amazing.
So true. Well, Sarah, this has been such an enlightening conversation. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your expertise on describing festivals in English.
It's been my pleasure, Mike. I always enjoy talking about language and culture, and I hope our listeners feel empowered to go out there and share their own stories.
I'm sure they do. To all of our amazing listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in to the Learn English Lab. We hope you found this deep dive into describing your favorite festival helpful and inspiring.
Remember, practice makes perfect, so don't be afraid to try out what you've learned today. Tell a friend, a family member, or even a stranger about your favorite festival.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're feeling really brave, share your description in the comments below.
Yes.
We'd love to hear from you.
We're always here to support you on your English language learning journey.
Absolutely. So until next time, keep practicing, keep learning, and keep celebrating.
Yes.
And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Learn English Lab YouTube channel for more exciting language adventures.
Happy learning, everyone.
Bye for now. Welcome back to the Learn English Lab. I'm Mike, and today we're diving deep into something really practical, something that can actually be, well, kind of exciting.
Exciting.
Yeah, we're going to talk about how to talk about your aims in life in English and how to do it smoothly and confidently.
I like that. And hi, everyone. I'm Sarah. I'm thrilled to be here, Mike. I'm all about giving you the words, the tools, the linguistic tools to make your goals and dreams totally clear.
I think it's interesting.
This is a skill that can open so many doors,
Yeah.
personally and professionally.
A lot of times when we learn English, we focus on like the day-to-day, ordering food, asking for directions.
Right.
But being able to articulate, what you want out of life,
I like that.
that's next level communication.
I love that.
That's where you really start sharing your dreams and passion.
Absolutely.
And honestly, even if your English isn't perfect yet, that's okay.
I agree.
That genuine energy,
Yes.
it'll carry you through.
100%. Sometimes we get so caught up in being grammatically perfect,
Right.
when really it's the feeling behind the words that people connect with. So before we get to the actual words themselves,
Yep.
let's take a minute to think about what we really mean by this word, aim. What are we talking about?
I think that's important because it seems so obvious, but I think even native English speakers
Right.
can sometimes fumble this. What questions should our listener ask themselves
Right.
to really pinpoint that driving force in their life?
It's about going deep, asking yourself what really gets you excited. What gets you up in the morning?
Yeah.
What gives you that feeling of purpose?
Right.
And maybe even more importantly, what kind of impact do you want to have on the world?
I like that. It's almost like figuring out your internal compass. What's your guiding star? For some people, their aim might be something very concrete.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to become a doctor. I want to start my own business. I want to travel the world.
Right.
Those are very clear aims.
Exactly.
But for others, it might be more of a feeling or a way of life they want to cultivate.
Exactly. And there's no right or wrong answer. That's what's so cool about it. It's completely individual. It's whatever truly resonates with you, what makes your heart sing,
Yeah. Okay, so we've got a handle on what our aim actually is.
Okay.
Now we need the vocabulary to match it. We need the English vocabulary. It's like upgrading our toolkit, right?
Yes. Expanding your vocabulary gives you more tools to express yourself,
Right.
more accurately, more nuance. And when you're talking about something as important as your aim in life, there are certain words that can really make an impact.
Okay, so what are some of those power words, some of those key words that we can use to really elevate these conversations?
Words like aspiration, goal, passion, purpose, ambition.
Right.
Each of these has a slightly different shade of meaning, and using them well can make your communication much more sophisticated.
I see. So it's not just about using big words to sound smart.
Right.
It's about choosing the right words.
Exactly.
To really reflect your own feelings.
Yes.
To really express yourself authentically.
Exactly. It's about finding the words that fit you.
Okay, can you give us some examples of how these words might actually play out in a real conversation?
Sure. Let's say somebody asks you about your plans for the future.
Okay.
You could say, my aspiration is to become a musician and create music that moves people. Or you could say, I have a deep passion for environmental conservation, and my ultimate goal is to work in renewable energy.
Okay.
Do you see how those different words kind of bring a different flavor to your message?
Yeah, I do. I see what you're saying. But even with the best vocabulary, we still need to structure our words effectively.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like a good story talking about your aim, it needs a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Absolutely. A clear structure keeps the listener engaged and helps your message come across clearly.
So how do we actually structure this conversation about our aims? What are the essential pieces?
I like to think about it like building a house.
Okay.
You need a solid foundation, strong walls, and a roof to tie it all together.
I like that analogy. So how do we build that house? What are the pieces?
I recommend a 4-part structure: introduction, reason, steps, and conclusion.
Okay. Introduction, reason, steps, conclusion. Let's break that down a little bit.
Okay.
What goes in each of those sections?
So in the introduction, you want to state your aim directly. Nice and concisely. Think of it like a headline that grabs your listener's attention.
Right.
Then the reason is where you get to explain the why behind your aim.
Okay.
Like what motivates you? What changes are you hoping to see? This is where you make that emotional connection.
Right. It's not just what you want, it's why you want it.
Exactly. And then the steps section, that's where you get practical.
Okay.
What are you actually doing to reach your goal? Are you studying, volunteering, networking, saving money?
Yeah.
Sharing those steps shows that you're serious and dedicated to your aim.
Right. So you're not just dreaming, you're actually building towards it.
Exactly. And finally, the conclusion is where you wrap it all up, reiterate your aim, then emphasize your determination. You can express your excitement about the journey, the impact you want to make. It's your final chance to leave a lasting impression.
Okay, I love this structure.
Good.
But can you give us an example? Can you show us what it might look like in action?
Absolutely. Let's imagine someone whose aim is to be a chef.
Okay.
And open their own restaurant one day.
Okay.
Their introduction could be as simple as, my aim is to become a chef and have my own restaurant.
Okay, very clear, very straightforward. What about the reason? Why is that so important to them?
They could say something like, I love bringing people together through food, and creating a space where everyone feels welcome, where they can experience new flavors.
So it's about their passion for food, about creating a sense of community.
Exactly.
And how would they highlight the steps they're taking to make this happen?
They might share, I'm currently taking culinary classes and I'm working part-time at a local bakery to get experience.
So they're building their skills step by step.
Exactly.
And finally, to bring it all home, what might a strong conclusion look like?
They could say, I'm excited to keep learning and growing so I can eventually open a restaurant that brings joy to my community.
Okay, I love that. I love how they connected it back to their community.
Right.
And you can really feel their determination there. That's such a clear example.
Good. I'm glad it's helpful.
It is. But starting from scratch like that, it can be intimidating.
Yeah.
Are there any phrases like sentence starters that can kind of give us a jump start?
Yes.
When we're talking about our aims, kind of like having a cheat sheet.
You're absolutely right. Sometimes having those go-to phrases can make all the difference.
Yeah.
And the great thing about these phrases is they're flexible. You can use them as a starting point.
Right.
And build from there with your own experiences.
Okay, let's hear it. What are some of these magic phrases?
Some simple but effective ones are, my goal is to, I'm passionate about, I aspire to, I'm working towards, I dream of.
I like those. They're simple, but you're right. You can build on those so easily.
Wait, you can make them your own.
How would they actually fit into, a natural conversation?
Okay. Let's say someone asks you, what are you hoping to achieve in the next few years?
Okay.
You could respond with, my goal is to become fluent in English and travel the world using my language skills to connect with people from different cultures.
That's great.
Or if someone asks about your hobbies, you might say, I'm passionate about photography and I aspire to have my work featured in a gallery someday.
I love how easy it is to just plug in the specifics.
Right.
To really personalize these phrases, make them your own.
Yeah, the key is to practice using them in different situations so they become second nature. The more you use them, the more comfortable and natural you'll sound.
So it's not about memorizing a script. It's about internalizing these phrases, making them a part of your natural way of speaking.
Exactly.
It's about owning your message and expressing it with confidence. But, I know that for a lot of people, especially those learning English, even with the best phrases and structure, speaking can still be a little bit intimidating.
Oh, of course.
What are some tips for practicing and building that confidence?
It can be. And it's interesting because I think sometimes we focus so much on the words that we forget about everything else.
Yeah.
That goes into communication.
Exactly.
So much of how we communicate actually goes beyond the words themselves.
Right. And I think about things like, body language, tone of voice.
Yes.
These subtle cues.
Totally.
They can really make a difference.
100%.
How can we use those nonverbal elements to really enhance what we're saying when we're talking about our aims?
I think it all starts with awareness, like being aware of our posture. Standing or sitting up straight conveys confidence and self-assurance.
Right.
If you think about it, like if someone is hunched over and kind of mumbling about their dreams, it's hard to take them seriously.
You're right. It's like your body's reflecting how you feel on the inside.
Exactly.
If you're not confident, it's going to show.
Totally. And then there's eye contact.
Eye contact.
This is so important for building rapport.
Right.
And really connecting with your listener. It shows that you're engaged. And that you genuinely care about what you're sharing. So don't be afraid to look the listener in the eye. It really shows your sincerity.
I know some people are a little uncomfortable with eye contact.
I know, me too, sometimes.
Especially when you're nervous.
Right.
Do you have any tips for making it feel a little bit more natural?
Oh, for sure. So one thing you can try is to focus on one eye at a time, or even the space between the eyebrows. If direct eye contact feels too intense, the important thing is that it feels genuine.
You don't want to be staring people down.
No, definitely not.
Okay, so posture, eye contact.
Okay.
What about hand gestures?
Oh, I love hand gestures. I
Right.
think they can be so expressive.
Right.
And I think when you're truly passionate about something,
Yeah.
your hands naturally want to get involved.
They do.
So don't be afraid to let them move,
Mhm.
you know? Let those hands flow with your words.
Okay, it's almost like they're painting a picture
Totally.
alongside your words.
Mm-hmm.
But are there any hand gestures we should avoid?
That's a great question because I think, there are definitely some gestures that are fine in some cultures,
Mm-hmm.
but not so fine in others.
Oh, yeah.
So it's always good to be aware of those cultural differences.
Okay.
A good general rule, I think, is to keep your gestures open and natural.
Uh-huh.
Avoid anything like too sudden or too pointed.
Right.
Things that could be misunderstood.
Right. It's all about being respectful and mindful.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's about finding that balance
Yeah.
between expressing yourself
Mm-hmm.
and being sensitive to those cultural differences.
I love that. I love how all of these things we've been talking about,
Right.
they all come together
Totally.
to really enhance the way we communicate.
Yeah, it's about creating that connection.
Mm-hmm.
And remember,
Yeah.
you are the expert
Yes.
on your own aims.
Yeah.
Your passion will shine through.
Yeah.
And when you combine that with a clear,
Yeah.
confident way of communicating,
Right.
it can be so inspiring.
And, I think as we've been talking about all these strategies for expressing our aims in English,
Mm-hmm.
it strikes me that these skills are applicable
Oh, yeah.
to so many other areas of life.
Totally. It goes way beyond language.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Whether you're trying to convince your friends to go on a trip with you,
Right.
or you're pitching an idea at work,
Mm-hmm.
or even just sharing your dreams with
Yes.
someone you love.
I love that.
These communication skills
Mm-hmm.
can really open
You
doors
can.
and create opportunities.
And you know what else is really cool about it?
What?
The skills are transferable.
Huh?
So the more you practice
Yeah.
expressing yourself in English,
Mhm.
the more confident and articulate you become
Yeah.
in other areas of your life too.
Oh, it's
Like a ripple effect,
I like that.
boosting your overall communication skills.
It's like an investment that keeps paying off.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And you know what else?
What's that?
Language learning is a lifelong process.
It is.
It really is.
I mean, I still feel like I'm learning English
oh, me too. All the time.
every day.
Yeah. That's what keeps it fun and interesting.
Exactly.
There's always something new to learn.
Yeah,
Always room to improve.
I love that. Okay, so we're not alone.
No, you're definitely not alone.
We're all this journey together.
Yes, we are.
We're all learning and growing,
And that's what makes it so much fun.
and I think it's great to have a community,
Oh, absolutely.
people to support you,
Yeah, to cheer you on.
to share your experiences with you,
Yes, and to learn from.
and to learn from. Yeah, I love that. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We've talked about finding those power words. We've talked about, mastering our nonverbal communication.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear from our listeners.
you do.
What are some of your biggest takeaways?
Yeah.
What resonated with you the most?
I'd love to know what you guys are struggling with.
Yeah.
What tips and strategies have worked for you.
Yeah. Let's have a conversation.
Yes, let's chat. Let's make this interactive.
Let's make this collaborative.
I love that.
Yeah. Share your insights.
Mhm.
Ask your questions.
Yeah.
Let's learn from each other.
Totally.
Yeah.
We're all in this together.
We are.
And, it's so easy to get caught up in thinking about, what we haven't achieved yet.
Right.
But it's so important to remember to acknowledge
Yeah.
how far we've come,
Absolutely.
and to celebrate those wins, big and small.
Yes.
It's all about progress, not perfection.
Right.
Language learning is a journey. It's not a destination.
You got it.
So enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
Embrace the bumps in the road.
Yeah. Those bumps are where you learn.
Exactly. And most importantly, have fun.
Absolutely. And, what I find so inspiring
Hmm.
is the incredible diversity of our listeners.
I know. It's amazing.
We have people from all over the world.
Yeah.
From all walks of life.
It's so cool.
And it's really a testament to the power of language
Yes.
to connect us across cultures.
It really is.
It's beautiful.
It is.
No matter where you're from,
Yeah.
no matter your background, language can be that bridge.
That bridge.
It's beautiful.
It,
No matter where you're from,
Yeah.
no matter your background, language can be that bridge.
That bridge.
That lets us share our stories, our dreams,
Yes.
our aspirations.
Absolutely.
It's really powerful.
It is.
And it's a reminder that we're all part of something much bigger than ourselves.
100%.
And that feeling of connection
Yeah.
can be really empowering.
Especially when we're working towards goals.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it might feel challenging sometimes,
Absolutely.
knowing you're not alone.
Yeah.
Knowing there are other people out there
Yeah.
who understand your struggles,
Mhm.
who share your passion.
Yeah.
That can make all the difference.
It really can.
It can.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into talking about your aims in life in English,
Okay.
I think it's important to just take a moment
Mm-hmm.
to appreciate this amazing community
Yes.
of language learners that we're all a part of.
I love that. To everyone listening, thank you for being here.
For sharing this journey with us.
You are all so inspiring.
Your dedication, your enthusiasm. It's amazing.
Incredible.
And we're here to support you every step of the way.
Absolutely. So don't hesitate to reach out, ask questions, share your experiences, connect with other learners in the comments.
Yeah, let's keep this conversation going.
Yes. Let's create a space where everyone feels empowered to express their aims and aspirations with confidence.
I love that. Well, on that note, a huge thank you to you.
Oh, thank you.
Our amazing expert.
It's been a pleasure.
For sharing your wisdom and your passion with us.
It has been a pleasure, Mike. It's always inspiring to connect with fellow language enthusiasts.
Absolutely.
And to share the magic of communication.
And to all of our wonderful listeners out there.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us here at the Learn English Lab.
We hope you enjoyed this deep dive.
We hope you feel equipped to speak about your aims in life with confidence and clarity.
Absolutely. And don't forget to share and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yes. We'd love to have you as part of our community.
For more tips and tricks on your English learning journey.
And until next time.
Happy learning.
Happy learning. Hello, and welcome to the Learn English Lab. I'm Mike, and today we're joined by Sarah.
Hi, everyone.
We're going to be diving into a topic that I think is super relevant for a lot of our listeners.
Yeah.
How to speak on your first day at college in English.
So
it's a big one, right? You're walking onto campus for the first time.
Absolutely.
You're seeing new people everywhere. There's all this excitement and energy.
New faces,
And you might be feeling a little bit nervous about,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
approaching people and starting conversations in English.
Yeah, especially in a new environment like that where everything is new.
Exactly.
It can feel a little overwhelming.
So where do we even begin? What are some of the first things that we should keep in mind when we want to make a good impression and start those conversations?
Well, it may seem obvious, but I think introductions are key.
Right.
They're really your first opportunity to connect with someone.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Introductions. What's a good way to approach someone and introduce yourself on that first day?
You can keep it pretty simple.
Keep it simple, right?
Think of it as a formula. You start with, hi, my name is your name.
Right.
Give them a little context, like where you're from or what you're studying. So for instance, you could say, hi, I'm Sarah, I'm from Chicago, and I'm majoring in psychology.
I like that.
It's nice to meet you. Something like that.
Straightforward and effective.
Exactly.
But let's say we want to spice things up a little bit.
Okay.
How can we make those introductions more memorable or give people something to latch onto and start a conversation?
Yeah, I love that idea because you can add a little detail about yourself that's a little more unique.
Okay.
Something to spark curiosity.
I like it.
So instead of just saying, I'm Mike from California, you could say, I'm Mike, I'm from California, and I'm a huge classic rock fan.
Nice.
Always looking for new bands to discover, something like that.
That's great. So you're giving them a little hook
Exactly.
to start a conversation.
Right.
But it's not just about the words, is it?
No, it's not,
What else should we be thinking about?
Nonverbal communication is huge.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in a new environment and maybe you're not as confident in your language skills.
So what are some of those nonverbal cues that we should be paying attention to?
Well, first and foremost, you want to smile.
Smile.
A genuine smile can go a long way.
It's true.
It makes you seem more approachable and friendly.
What about eye contact? I know that's important in American culture at least.
Absolutely.
But how do you strike that balance between making eye contact and being a little bit too intense?
Right. Yeah. You don't want to stare someone down.
Right.
But you do want to look at them when you're talking to them.
Okay.
Just glance away naturally. Yeah.
Make it a natural kind of flow.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got the introduction down, we're smiling, we're making eye contact.
Right.
What comes next?
Well, sometimes those initial hellos can be followed by some awkward silence.
Uh-oh.
So that's where you want to have a few open-ended questions up your sleeve.
Okay.
Those can be really helpful.
Give me some examples.
Sure. So you could ask something like, what made you choose this college?
Okay.
Or what are you most looking forward to this semester?
I like those.
Yeah. Just something to get the other person talking.
And get them sharing a little bit about themselves.
Exactly.
But it's a two-way street, right?
It is.
We don't want to just be firing off questions at people.
Well, no, you want to listen.
How do we show that we're listening?
Ask follow-up questions
Okay.
based on what they're saying.
So if someone says, oh, I'm really excited about this particular class.
You could say, oh, what is it about that class that interests you?
I see.
Show that you're actually paying attention
That's great.
to what they're saying.
And I think one of the things that a lot of English learners struggle with is moving beyond those one-word or short answers like yes and no.
Yeah, it's easy to fall into that trap.
How do we push past that and give people a little bit more to work with?
Yeah, I think instead of just giving a yes or no answer, try adding a sentence or two.
Okay.
to kind of elaborate on what thought.
So instead of just saying yes,
Right.
you might say,
You could say, yes, I love living in the city. There's always something going on, and I enjoy exploring new neighborhoods.
that's a great example.
So you're giving them
So you're giving them a little bit more to go on.
Exactly.
And showing that you're,
And that you're enthusiastic.
enthusiastic. There you go.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that I've always found interesting about college is that there's a whole kind of lingo,
Oh, yeah.
a set of phrases.
Campus lingo.
It's like its own little world.
Yeah, so let's play a little game.
Okay.
I'm going to throw out a phrase, and you tell me what it actually means.
Okay, I like it.
On a college campus. So first one, what's up? So they're not actually asking you what's happening in the sky.
I see.
It's more of a greeting. Okay, how are you?
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, how about, do you want to grab lunch?
That's a pretty straightforward one. They're asking you to go eat lunch with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice and simple.
It's a good one.
Okay, but even with all these tips, I think it's natural to still feel a little bit nervous on your first day.
Oh, absolutely.
Is that normal?
Totally normal. I think everyone feels that way.
Even native English speakers?
Even native English speakers.
Oh,
It's a
yeah.
new environment. You're meeting new people.
It's a big day.
It's a big day.
So how do we deal with those nerves? Any advice?
I think it helps to try and reframe those nerves as excitement.
Okay.
You know, it's the same energy,
Interesting.
just channeled in a different direction.
I like that.
And remember, most people are in the same boat.
They are.
They're feeling a little bit nervous too.
So don't worry too much.
Exactly.
But let's be real.
Yeah,
We're going to make mistakes,
of course.
especially when we're speaking in a new language.
It's part of the process.
What do we do when that happens?
You know, just laugh it off, apologize if you need to,
Okay.
and keep going.
Keep going.
You know, most people are understanding. They appreciate the effort you're making.
Absolutely. And I can totally relate to that. I remember one time during my first week of college, I was so nervous that I accidentally called my professor Mom.
Oh my God.
It was so embarrassing.
I can imagine.
But you know what? He was totally cool about it.
That's great.
We all laughed. And it actually broke the ice a little bit.
Yeah, sometimes those awkward moments can turn into something positive.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So we talked about introductions. We've talked about breaking the ice.
right.
We've talked about active listening. But college is also a lot about group conversations.
Yeah.
How do we approach those?
Yeah, that can feel a little intimidating.
A little bit.
You've got a whole group of people.
Yeah.
You want to join in?
Yeah. How do we
So first, I would say just observe the group for a minute.
observe?
What's the energy like?
Okay.
Are they having a serious discussion, or are they just chatting and laughing?
So get a feel for the vibe.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then look for a natural opening.
Okay.
Maybe someone says something that you really agree with.
Okay.
You can use a phrase like, I totally agree with that because,
Okay.
or that's an interesting point I was actually thinking.
So you're building on what they've already said
Exactly.
and showing that you're engaged.
Right.
But what if we're completely lost?
Ask for clarification.
It's okay to do that.
Absolutely. It's much better to ask than to pretend you understand.
So how would we phrase that?
You could say something like, sorry, I'm not sure I follow. Could you explain that again?
Got it.
Or could you repeat that, please? I want to make sure I understand.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So before we actually, dive into all these conversations, are there any things that we can do to prepare ahead of time?
Practice.
Practice. Okay.
Practice makes perfect, right? So you can imagine different conversation scenarios.
Okay.
Maybe role play with a friend or a family member.
So like a little rehearsal.
Yeah, exactly.
What if we don't have someone to practice with?
There's tons of resources online.
Oh, okay.
You can watch videos of college students interacting.
Okay.
You can listen to podcasts about college life, lots of options.
Right.
And, you can even just talk to yourself in English.
Talk to yourself.
Practice introducing yourself.
Interesting.
Talk about your interest.
Okay.
It might feel silly,
Yeah.
but it can really help.
So it's all about getting comfortable with the language.
Exactly.
But I think sometimes it's not just about the practical skills.
Right.
It's about the mindset. Any advice on how we can approach those conversations with the right attitude?
I think one of the most important things is to remember that everyone feels a little awkward and uncertain on their first day.
Mhm.
It's a brand new experience.
True.
So be kind to yourself.
Be kind to yourself.
Cut yourself some slack.
I like that.
And remember, every conversation is an opportunity to learn and grow.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up this first part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
I just want to reiterate, it's okay to feel nervous.
Absolutely.
But with a little preparation and a positive attitude,
Yeah.
you can definitely rock those first day conversations.
I think so.
I think so too.
I got this.
We'll be back soon with part 2 of this deep dive, where we'll be exploring the power of body language.
That's right.
Stay tuned.
See you then.
Welcome back to the Learn English Lab.
We're back.
And we're continuing our deep dive into, how to end those conversations on your first day of college.
All those new faces. Yeah.
Now, we talked in the last part about introductions, breaking the ice, asking questions.
Right. The basics.
But I want to talk about something that I think is really important, but often gets overlooked.
Okay. What's that?
Body language.
Ah, yes, body language.
It's so crucial.
It is. It really is.
Because it can convey so much.
Absolutely. Even more so than our words sometimes.
Right. And I think especially for English learners, when you're maybe not as confident in your spoken English, your body language can really help to get your message across.
Yeah, fill in those gaps.
So let's talk about some specific tips for using body language effectively on that first day.
Okay, sounds good.
What are some of the things we should be thinking about?
Well, let's start with posture.
Okay.
You know, think about it when you see someone who's slouching or kind of hunched over.
Yeah.
What impression does that give you?
Not very confident.
Exactly.
Maybe a little bit closed off.
Right, whereas someone who stands up straight, shoulders back, head held high,
Yeah.
they project confidence and openness.
It's like they're saying, I'm here and I'm ready to engage.
Exactly.
Okay, so posture check. What else?
Smiling, smile. Can't forget about that.
It's so important.
It is, you know, a genuine smile can really put people at ease.
Makes you seem more approachable.
Absolutely.
But how about eye contact?
Ah, yes, eye contact, the tricky one.
It's important, but I also don't want to make people uncomfortable by like staring them down.
Right, you don't want to be too intense.
So how do you find that balance?
You want to make eye contact when you're listening to someone.
Right.
And when you're talking to them.
Okay.
But just break it naturally from time to time.
Don't hold it for too long.
Exactly. You know, just glance away every so often.
Make it feel natural.
Exactly.
Now, there's another techniques that I've heard about called mirroring.
Oh, yes, mirroring. That's a good one.
Tell me about that.
So basically, you subtly reflect the other person's body language.
Oh, interesting.
So if they lean in, you might lean in a little bit too. If they have their arms crossed, you might do the same.
So you're kind of subconsciously saying, hey, we're on the same wavelength.
Exactly. It can help create a sense of rapport.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got posture, smiling, eye contact, mirroring. What about hand gestures?
Hand gestures, yeah. I mean, they can be great.
I've seen some people get a little carried away.
Right, you don't want to overdo it,
Yeah.
but using your hand list can definitely add emphasis.
Right.
And make you seem more expressive.
Like adding a little bit of flavor to your conversation.
Exactly.
So I think the takeaway here is that body language is a really powerful tool,
Absolutely.
and we should be paying attention to it,
It can make a big difference.
especially in those first impressions.
Especially on that first day, yeah.
So stand tall, smile, make eye contact, use those hand gestures strategically, and most importantly, be yourself.
Yes, authenticity is key.
Absolutely.
Let your personality shine through.
We'll be back in a moment to wrap things up with some final thoughts. And we are back for the final part of our deep dive.
It's been a great conversation.
It really has. We've talked about a lot, introductions, body language, active listening.
Even some campus lingo.
But there's one more thing that I want to touch on
Okay.
before we wrap up.
I'm all yours.
And it's kind of the secret sauce.
Oh.
Ties everything together.
Okay, tell me more.
Authenticity.
Authenticity.
Being genuine.
Yes.
Letting your personality shine through.
That's so important.
Because you can have all the right words, you can have all the right body language.
Right.
But if you're not being yourself,
Yeah.
people can sense that.
Absolutely. They can tell if you're not being genuine.
It's like trying to fit into a mold that just doesn't quite work.
It just doesn't feel right.
So as you're going into those conversations on your first day, just remember,
Yeah.
relax.
Relax and be yourself.
Be yourself.
People will appreciate that.
Because ultimately, people connect with other people.
Exactly.
And they connect with people who are genuine and authentic.
Right. And, you know, sometimes the best conversations are the ones that don't go according to plan.
Oh, absolutely.
It's those unexpected moments.
Yeah.
The shared laughter, the genuine connection.
That's what makes it memorable.
Absolutely.
So don't be afraid to go off script a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe share a funny story or ask a question that's a little bit different.
Be curious.
Be curious. Exactly.
Let the conversation flow naturally.
Yeah. Let the conversation flow naturally.
Yeah, let the conversation flow naturally.
So I think to wrap up our deep dive,
Yeah.
remember that confidence comes not just from the techniques,
Right.
but also from being comfortable with who you are
Absolutely.
and letting that shine through.
Embrace your unique perspective,
Yeah.
your experiences. They're valuable.
Absolutely.
So share them.
So every conversation is a chance to learn and grow.
It is.
And who knows, you might make some lifelong friends along the way.
That would be amazing.
That's the best part.
Yeah.
So just soak it all in, enjoy the experience, and remember, we believe in you.
I do.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive,
Yes.
don't forget to share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more English learning tips and tricks.
We'll see you next time.
See you soon. Hello and welcome to the Learn English Lab. I'm Mike, and boy, am I excited you're joining us for this deep dive into something I think we all love. And that's, funny stories.
Yeah, that's right. I'm Sarah, and I'm here to help you share those hilarious moments, but in English.
Yeah, we all have those stories that make us laugh, and every time we think about them. those personal blunders, those surprising moments, those things that just cracked everyone up. And today we're going to explore how to tell those stories, especially if you're learning English.
Absolutely. It's more than just, practicing English. Sharing stories helps you connect with people, build confidence in speaking, and it's just plain fun.
Okay, so let's dive right in. We've got to pick the right story, and I'm already feeling a little stuck.
Well, think about it this way. Which story brings a smile to your face just thinking about it, Which one do you find yourself wanting to tell over and over again?
Okay, I'm starting to see what you mean. It's not just about what happened, but how you felt, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's that emotional memory that makes a story really come alive.
Okay, so let's say I have a few funny moments in mind. How do I pick the one? I mean, I've tripped up the stairs. I've accidentally called my teacher mom. I even once walked into a glass door.
Those all sound promising, but which one makes you laugh the most? Which one has the most potential for humor?
Okay, I think I've got it. Remember that time I completely messed up a presentation at work? Oh, man. It was a disaster. But looking back, it's kind of hilarious.
Now you're talking. A presentation gone wrong, that's comedy gold. So let's start building this story. How would you describe the humor? Was it awkward slapstick?
It was definitely awkward, like foot and mouth awkward. I was so nervous and I just blurted out the wrong thing at the wrong time.
I can already picture it. So we've got awkward humor. Now let's add some descriptive words. Was it cringeworthy, hilarious, mortifying?
All of the above, but definitely mortifying at the time. And speaking of words, what about those action verbs? Like, did I stumble through my notes or freeze on the spot?
Those are great. Those strong verbs are like adding sound effects to your story. And don't forget about idioms and phrases. They can add so much flavor and really capture the humor.
Oh yeah, like I wanted the earth to swallow me whole, or I could feel my face turning beet red, but I'm always a bit nervous about using idioms. I don't want to sound unnatural.
I hear ya. But with a little practice, you can use them confidently. Think of them as adding spice to your story. For instance, instead of saying, I was embarrassed, you could say, I wanted to crawl under my desk and disappear.
Okay, I see how that works. It paints a funnier picture. So we've got the story, the vivid memory, and we're building up those awesome descriptive words. What's next?
Now let's think about the structure of your story. It needs a clear beginning, middle, and end. Think of it like a mini movie with a captivating plot.
You mean like an intro, build-up, climax, and resolution?
Yes. Let's use your presentation story as an example. Your introduction sets the scene. You're nervous. It's a big presentation. Your boss is there. What else is happening?
Oh, and the projector isn't working. Classic presentation nightmare fuel.
Perfect. The tension is rising. Then comes the climax. You fumble with the slides, things go wrong, and you blurt out something completely off topic.
Okay, I'm seeing it now. The room goes silent. Everyone is staring.
Exactly. And then what happens? Does someone laugh? Does your boss say something?
Oh man, my boss just stared at me with this blank expression. It was the most awkward silence ever.
That is brilliant. So we have the build-up, the awkward blunder, and now we need the resolution. How did you get out of that situation?
Well, I stammered through an apology and somehow managed to get the projector working. The rest of the presentation was a blur.
And was everyone still cringing, or did people eventually relax?
Surprisingly, a few people started chuckling. I think they realized I was mortified and they kind of felt bad for me.
There you go. So you've got the awkward beginning, the disastrous climax, and then that resolution where the tension eases. But how do you make sure the story flows smoothly, especially in another language?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. It's one thing to have the story in my head, but it's another to actually tell it in a way that makes sense.
Well, that's what transition words can come in handy. They're like bridges that connect the different parts of your story. Words like then, suddenly, because, but they help the listener follow all.
Okay, give me an example of how that works in my presentation story.
Sure, you could say, I was so nervous, but I tried to stay calm. Then the projector died. I panicked because I didn't know what to do. See how those little words make the story flow more smoothly.
Yeah. It's like adding signposts to guide the listener along. So we've got the structure, the transitions. What about the delivery? I mean, some people are naturally funny, but what about those of us who are a little less expressive?
That's a great point. And it brings us to the next step, practice.
Okay, so we've got our story, our vocabulary, our structure, our transitions. Now it's time to actually tell the story.
Yeah, exactly. And don't worry, you don't have to be a stand-up comedian to tell a funny story. It's more about sharing your experience with energy and enthusiasm.
So how do we practice that? Do we just stand in front of the mirror and tell ourselves the story?
That's one way to do it. It can help you get comfortable with the words and the flow. But you can also try telling the story to a friend, family member, or even a pet. The key is to practice speaking out loud.
I see your point. But talking to myself in the mirror might make me feel more awkward. And what about those nonverbal cues? Like, how much should I use my hands? What kind of facial expressions work? It can feel overwhelming.
You're absolutely right. Those things matter too. Remember how you felt during the funny event. Were you surprised, excited, mortified? Let those emotions show on your face, and don't be afraid to use your hands to emphasize certain points.
So it's almost like acting. I have to channel my inner comedian.
In a way, yes. But remember, the goal isn't to be a stand-up comedian. It's to share your story authentically. Let your personality shine through.
That makes me feel better. Okay, so practice telling the story, let my emotions show, use my hands. Anything else I should keep in mind?
Tone of voice is incredibly important. Just like your facial expressions, your tone can convey humor, surprise, or even disbelief. Play around with different tones as you practice.
Interesting. It's like adding sound effects to the story with my voice. And speaking of recording, could that be helpful?
Absolutely. Recording yourself is a fantastic way to identify areas for improvement. You can listen back and pay attention to your pacing, pronunciation, and overall delivery.
It's like having a personal speech coach right in my pocket. But what if I make mistakes? I'm still learning English, and I'm bound to mess up.
Everyone makes mistakes. It's part of the learning process. And honestly, mistakes can sometimes make the story even funnier.
That's so true. I've definitely had times when my English slip-up had everyone in stitches.
Exactly. Don't let the fear of mistakes hold you back. People appreciate authenticity. They connect with realness. So embrace those imperfections and just have fun.
This is so encouraging. I'm actually starting to get excited about sharing my presentation story. But where do I share it? It's not like I'm going to walk around telling strangers about my disastrous presentation.
Huh. Well, you could, but there are more structured ways to do it. Have you considered English conversation practice groups?
Oh yeah, those could be perfect. I've heard there are online groups too.
Absolutely. There are tons of online communities where people practice their English. It's a supportive and safe environment to share your story and get feedback.
I'm adding that to my to-do list. And hey, maybe I could even make a video for our YouTube channel. That would give me a reason to practice and really polish the story.
Now you're talking. Sharing your story on video is an awesome way to reach a wider audience and boost your confidence. Plus, it could help other English learners who are working on their story class skills.
I love that. It's all about embracing those funny moments and sharing them with the world. Okay, so we've covered so much ground today, choosing the right story, building our vocabulary, structuring our narrative, using transitions, practicing our delivery. What's the one big takeaway you want our listeners to leave with?
I think the most important thing is to remember that sharing your stories, even if your English isn't perfect, is a powerful way to connect with others and grow as a speaker. Don't be afraid to be yourself, have fun, and let your personality shine through.
I love that. It's all about embracing those funny moments and sharing them with the world. You know, all this talk about funny stories has got me thinking, I need to find my funniest story and give it a try. What about you? Do you have a go-to funny story?
Oh, I have tons, but that's a story for another day.
Fair enough. We'll have to have you back for another deep dive sometime soon. But for now, I think it's time to wrap things up. What do you say?
Sounds good to me.
All right, well, this has been so much fun exploring how to tell funny stories in English, and especially for English learners. And we've learned a lot today, from choosing the right story to, really mastering those transitions. But remember, the most important thing is to just go for it. Don't be afraid to share those hilarious moments, even if your English isn't perfect.
Yeah, I totally agree. Your story is unique and your voice is valuable. And, laughter really is a universal language.
That's a great point. And you know what? I'm feeling so much more confident about sharing my own funny story now. I might even try out some of those idioms you mentioned.
I can't wait to hear it.
And hey, maybe some of our listeners out there are feeling inspired too. So if you're ready to share your funniest story in English, we'd love to hear it. Leave a comment below, join an English conversation group, or heck, even create a video. The possibilities are endless.
Absolutely. And remember, the more you practice, the more confident you'll become.
Well said. And to our fantastic listeners, we want to say a huge thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of funny stories. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Learn English Lab's YouTube channel for more tips and tricks on speaking English confidently, and most importantly, having fun while doing it. We'll see you in the next episode.